Thank you everyone for being here. I'm going to just get right into it, right started. Thank you for being here. My name is María Fernanda. I was a student of Nikki Giovanni's documentary, Sheer Good Fortune, when I was growing up here in DC. When Nikki, which she often asked to be called, had learned that Toni Morrison's son, Slate, had passed away, she wanted Toni Morrison to know she was loved. Nikki organized the writing community to come together. Today, there is enough reason. Today, there is reason and beauty to gather for the love of Nikki. Sheer good fortune is a line from Toni Morrison's Sula. It is sheer good fortune to miss somebody long before they leave you. In the documentary, Nikki talked about how she loved to play bid whist, which is a card game, if you don't know. She said, "There's only one rule in bid whist: trust your partner." To everyone sitting here, you are my partner in celebrating Nikki Giovanni's life and work. She gave so much to DC, as do the three people sitting beside me. A lot of us, people in general, will tell you that there are people who have made us who we are. I was fortunate enough to meet and learn from a few of them in my hometown here in DC. Nikki Giovanni once wrote, artists very rarely have the chance to go back home and say, "I think I've done you proud." She wrote this as she found herself returning to Knoxville, Tennessee. She reflected on how Knoxville changed over the years, and the elders in her family slowly transitioned. May we all consider how to love on people and the people who made home for us. What does home become? I ask all of you to consider this today. What does home become when the people who crafted it move on? My own decision to return to DC was inspired by the scholar Zandria Robinson. She discussed Little Richard's early influences by recognizing his connections as another case of witness. They are kind of like the mirrors that come into your life to show you who you are. This afternoon, I have the opportunity to introduce you to three people who I had the honor of witnessing when I was just in my teens. We have Tricia Elam Walker. Can we give it up, please? Holly Bass. And Angela Mercer. All three of these people continue to give so much to the city and its writers. I hope this afternoon you will consider supporting their work, because we would not have the art scene that we have in DC without them, and certainly not without Nikki Giovanni. So today I want to celebrate you the way Nikki Giovanni celebrated 82 Black women whose work she published in the 1970 anthology, Night Comes Softly, an anthology of Black female voices, which I have an original copy with me today. I want to celebrate you all the way that Nikki honored James Baldwin by interviewing him in London on Soul, the program entertainment variety show Talk. I want to honor you the way I would have looked after Nikki when she returned to the United States and became ill from exhaustion after that interview, after traveling. As she pushed through, she published just months later, My House. So today, please join me in honoring Nikki Giovanni by celebrating her name across the city. Join me by coming up to this mic to share a work of hers and of your own. This is a place of love and respect, and I hope you will carry that as you come up. We are asking people to read for 3 minutes to make room for another. Yes, all good sounds. We may only have room for 5 or 6 readers, so I'm going to repeat that one more time. We may only have room for 5 to 6 readers in this hour that we have together. But first, good sounds. But first, I'm going to bring up our featured readers. And I wanted to let you guys know one thing. So you might be coming in thinking this is just a poetry reading that is also a tribute. But I purposely gathered people here today that are multi-genre, multidisciplinary artists. So you're not only going to hear poetry, you're going to hear other forms of art and writing. Yeah, you'll be good.
So good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. María Fernanda, thank you for inviting me to be part of this tribute. I'm really honored to be here with my sisters, Holly and Trisha. Also here, my mother, I'm honored, and my dance teacher, two women who played like an integral part in raising me. I have to acknowledge them because without them, I wouldn't be here. So I have spent, since Nikki Giovanni died, considerable time just reading her work, returning to her work. That started with my father's copy of Gemini, her autobiography. It was like falling apart. And I'm like holding it together with binder clips, reading after my father who just passed. They passed right along the same time. And then I just got into her poems. And I am so moved by how audacious, how courageous, how bold, how Nikki knew how to tell it like it is and love us through language in hard time. And so I want to read her poem, For a Poet I Know, and then I'm going to read something of my own, which I decided to write something new as opposed to reading from my book of writing for performance or from something else of mine, because I just tried to tap into what I felt reading her work, and it was immediacy. So this is Nikki's. For a Poet I Know. If you sang songs, I could make a request. Does the same hold true of poems? I'd like a poem about me. I'm Black and exist and for real. I'd like a poem about your uncle who got out of his bed to let us screw. Yeah, and maybe a poem about how I tried to talk to you one night and you suggested I read my own poems. What were you really thinking? I'd like to hear a poem about your wig. Everybody's got a wig. Aretha's is on her head. James Brown's is Humphrey, mine is Columbia, yours is the college you teach at, or the people who sent you there. I want a poem telling how tired you are of fucking women and relating to your hospital experiences, or maybe a poem about who you'd like to lay beside and dream with, and a real long poem on what you dream about. I really need a rare book poem and what they mean to you, and a new book poem about what you read, and a Joe Gonsalves poem about a hard-working brother, and a Carolyn Rogers poem about a beautiful sister, and a father poem for Hoyt Fuller, and a jet poem because we've never been in it, and a scared poem about me taking your clothes off, then offering an excuse, and a man poem about how you reached your Blackness, or perhaps an alcoholic poem about your mother, and a climbing poem about how you reached the heights, and a you poem, mostly, because your other poems don't tell me who you are, and I, having felt and tasted, you know, what you should know and relate to, that you should write, and are capable of writing, a tall, lean, explosive poem, not just a quiet, half-white hating poem about a Black poem called A Black Poet that I know and would like to love again. All right, so this one, I'm sharing with y'all the first people to hear it. No, all right, well, no, that's not true. One of my good friends had to listen because I was like, I can't just go out there with no call and response. I can't, that would be, dangerous, more dangerous than I wanted to be. But eminence. We know there were Black codes and lynch mobs, countless mundane and spectacular violences, rituals meant to silence and erase. But because I am a Black futurist dreaming in the traditions of Sun Ra, Donny Hathaway, and Toni Morrison, I forewarn on this day we beware those old Jim Crow norms creeping back as the nation navel gazes, dangerously obsessed with caging vital life meant for change. For example, Blacks were not allowed to show affection toward one another in public, especially kissing, because such affection offended white people. And that got me to thinking about Black pleasure, broadly speaking, and how radical that divine birthright in practice truly is. To please each other openly and be pleased with ourselves mutually, with consent, of course, to spite the night air sliced through with sirens wailing, piercing the silence, haunting the city's uptight streets. Let there be kisses, all kinds of kisses, brazen on street corners, but most especially in the middle of the sidewalk during the morning rush to work and at the cash register while the cashier rings up your food, and most assuredly at the bank, meaning bold and sloppy, wet French kisses, irreverently decadent and sweet, and the Brazilian kind for casual acquaintances and colleagues, two, one for each cheek, and a Black power fist as we pass, exiting and entering the metro car through those sliding doors. Let there be kisses, radical expressions of our love despite this contagion of many consumptions, this absurd meta logic of excess and a cloud of invisible storage. All my secrets sold to the United Kingdom, and I paid for it. A collage in digital mirage transferable for blackmail or oblivion's hole in the atmosphere. Let there be fresh kisses and chocolate croissants. Fires lit in every strange corner and deliberate places with a riotous insistence, because we will not make America John Wayne again, taking what one finds along the way, finding what has already been found, known, loved, and cared for, always thieving, fast talking, and calling that freedom. No more. Let there be kisses that make your toes curl and your tummy tingle, becoming a million monarch butterflies in flight long after your hair has turned gray. Let there be kisses to peel your wig back. And in every office, no matter the industry, let that be given. Let head nods be reciprocated likewise and with eye contact while crossing the street. Let there be kisses. Let us hold hands and be hugged up in the lobbies of corporations, because what is freedom in this impossible tangle, this web tightening in our psyches? An automatic reply, a silenced ringer, messages from all contacts delivered in quiet mode, everything hushed with a heavy knowing, a pattern, reflections. We are all fucked up. In a row of funhouse mirrors facing more of the same, the warp speed and high-pitched ringing, shattering any illusion that we are safe. We are trained to recognize it in our imaginations first, like recalling a Watchmen episode. Here, we are fresh with death. Death fresh on our myriad screens and screams, because the whole world is ablaze with urgency. This year of the snake shedding its skin again, this country slips into shapes reminiscent of the Ouroboros eating itself. This is our imminence, an end, a beginning. We're here. Thank you.
Where did you put it? Oh, yeah. Hi, I know some of us are still just getting here, so I want to introduce very quickly our next reader. She comes and joins us. Joining us will be Holly Bass. Thank you so much. Woo!
Hey, so as some of you may know, I am a performance artist and writer, and I had really wanted to show you this like 30-second clip where I'm doing movement to that interview that was referenced earlier between James Baldwin and Nikki Giovanni. We just couldn't get the technology, but it's on the internet. You can find it. I have a piece called American Woman, and I performed to different well-known women writers, activists, and the like. So, but we're gonna keep it moving like we always do, keep it rolling. I'm also a teaching artist of many years. For me, Nikki Giovanni was one of the first Black poets that I ever read in school. And I'm gonna read the poem that was somehow made it into our textbooks. I did grow up in California, so I think that probably does make a difference. And it's also been my pleasure to then use this poem to teach other students, right? That generational legacy. This is called Nikki Rosa. Childhood remembrances are always a drag if you're Black. You always remember things like living in Woodlawn with no inside toilet. And if you become famous or something, they never talk about how happy you were to have your mother all to yourself and how good the water felt when you got your bath from one of those big tubs that folk in Chicago barbecue in. And somehow when you talk about home, it never gets across how much you understood their feelings as the whole family attended meetings about Hollydale. And even though you remember, your biographers never understand your father's pain as he sells his stock and another dream goes. And though you're poor, it isn't poverty that concerns you. And though they fought a lot, it isn't your father's drinking that makes any difference, but only that everybody is together and you and your sister have happy birthdays and very good Christmases. And I really hope no white person ever has cause to write about me because they never understand. Black love is Black wealth. And they'll probably talk about my hard childhood and never understand that all the while I was quite happy. No. Okay, I'm not finding it. So I'm going to read this poem called Better Roses, Georgia, August 1999. Driving back from Albany, I tell my father that I'd like a piece of cotton to take with me. We stop along the road. My father has told me how he used to pick cotton every day after school during harvest. 3.5 cents per pound. The most he ever picked in one day was 214 pounds. 40 years later, he still remembers this number, still remembers the excitement of having 7 hard-earned dollars in his hand. I open my car door. I'll get it, Daddy says. What you want? Just a cotton boll? He looks across the field for signs of a shotgun-toting, overzealous farmer guarding his crop. No one in sight. He wades through high grass in dress slacks and good shoes. I pray the ground is dry. He pulls off 3 nice bowls. From where I am, it looks like he is picking small white roses for me. He returns to the car and places them in my hands. I examine these strange flowers, turning them by the stem. The papery leaves crumble as I touch them. The hard hull, pointed enough to draw blood, dark as my own skin.
Can we get over for Holly one more time, please? Come on. I know y'all out there. And so one of my earliest influences is coming up next. I have to say, this woman was the literary director of the writing program that I attended when I was in high school, and came in with the hottest red shoes and these beautiful glasses. And just when I saw her at, I think I might have even been like 13 because I'm a little young for my age, 12. Bless you. And well, they don't know how old I am, but I could see myself in this way where all of a sudden I was like, I can be fully me just because this person stood there, right? Came to work her full self. And that was before she even spoke. So I'm really glad to bring up and for you guys to hear Tricia Elam Walker.
Thank you so much, Maria. And thanks for inviting me to this. I'm delighted to be with Nina and Holly and you. And thank you, Politics and Prose. So I was gonna read a different poem by Nikki, but I came across this poem called Age. That's just the simple title. Oh, can y'all hear me? Okay. I came across this poem called Age, and it changed what I was gonna read because I just turned 71 last month, and when I, it's just funny because when I turned 70 last year, it didn't feel like that big a deal, but now it feels like, oh, you're really in the 70s now. So anyway, so Age by Nikki Giovanni. We tend to fear old age as some sort of disorder that can be cured with the proper brand of aspirin, or perhaps a bit of Bengay for the shoulders. It does, of course, pay to advertise. One hates the idea of the first gray hair, a shortness of breath, devastating blows to the ego, indications we are doing what comes naturally. It's almost laughable that we detest aging when we first become aware we want it. Little girls of 4 or 5 push with eyes shining brightly at grandma, mommy, the lie that they are 7 or 8. Little girls at 10 worry that a friend has gotten her monthly and she has not. Little girls of 12 can be socially crushed by the lack of knobs on their chests. Little boys of 14 want to think that they want a woman, but the little penis that simply won't erect is shattering to their idea of manhood. If perhaps they get a little peach fuzz on their faces, they may survive adolescence, proving there may indeed be life after high school. The children begin to play older without knowing the price is weariness. Age teaches us that our virtues are neither virtuous nor our vices foul. Age doesn't matter really. What frightens is mortality. It dawns upon us that we can die. At some point it occurs, we surely shall. It is not death we fear, but the loss of youth, not the youth of our teens, where most of the thinking took place somewhere between the navel and the knee, but the youth of our 30s, where career decisions were going well and we were respected for our abilities, or the youth of our 40s, where our decisions proved, if not right, then not wrong either, and the house, after all, is half paid. It may simply be that work is so indelibly tied to age that the loss of work brings the depression of impending death. There are so many, too many, who have never worked, and therefore for whom death is a constant companion. As lack of marriage lowers divorce rates, lack of life prevents death. The unwillingness to try is worse than any failure. In youth, our ignorance gives us courage. With age, our courage gives us hope. With hope, we learn that man is more than the sum of what he does. We also are what we wish we did, and age teaches us that even that doesn't matter. Nikki Giovanni. And so along those lines, I'm going to read to you from a short story that I wrote called The Taxi Ride. I was standing out there waiting for the bus on one of them real cold days when I could see my breath. I started thinking about Jimmy to take my mind off the cold. I wondered if Jimmy was ever going to be himself again. Seemed like so much of the old Jimmy was already gone, that it'd be a mighty far ways for him to come back. The old Jimmy used to stay up late talking to me about his dreams for us and the world. He used to say, come retirement, we was gonna travel all around, go back to places he'd been when he was in the war, like Paris, France, and a village in Italy, where he said they got streets so small only 2 people can walk down them at a time. He described the places so good, I felt like I'd be able to find my way around once I got there. Before retirement had a good chance to impress us, though, Jimmy started getting sick. The sick Jimmy didn't do much talking, seemed to take too much effort. Them legs of his that liked to dance on the weekends with me became full of pain and slow moving. His skin that used to shine from smiling withered up and turned the color of ashes. I knew he was getting close to dying. It would be especially on my mind when I was watching him sleep. He used to sleep hard as a rock and snore something awful with his eyes shut tight. But them sick days seemed like he was half expecting to die every time he went to sleep, the way he kept his eyes open a crack. Only the white part showed, and it made him look like he was on the way to see his maker. I'd touch his arms or his chest gentle-like, just to let him know I loved him, and he'd try to wink at me the way he used to, but instead it just looked like he was blinking. Then he'd usually start talking some mess about getting with the boys so he could get his papers straight. That way I wouldn't have no burdens when he was gone. And I'd tell him it didn't matter about all that. I just didn't want him to leave me. Then he'd get quiet again and sad looking and go on to sleep. One of my days was twin to the next. I don't care much for the mess they got on TV. Too much cussing and killing and people half naked, so I'd read my books and my newspaper until Oprah came on. Most of the time I can stomach her show. Then I'd cook dinner. By that time, Latrice would be home from school, and soon Edward or Lance would bring Jimmy home. After dinner, Jimmy'd sit in front of the television and fall asleep there most likely. I'd help him get in bed. Most nights, I'd fall asleep after I started reading again, but sometimes I'd need to make myself a hot toddy. Them days, I got real acquainted with lonely. A young girl with 2 babies came and stood next to me at the bus stop. It was all I could do not to tell her to cover the baby's face up from the cold and wipe the other one's nose. Snot looked like it'd been there since the days of Methuselah. My boys, Lance and Edward, kept telling me not to say nothing to strangers nowadays, especially the young ones. And they right. I don't know what's got into some of them teenagers, but they just plain crazy. Read in the paper the other day about a poor 75-year-old woman, same age as me, who told one of them young girls she should stop slapping her child around. Next thing you know, the girl done punched the old woman. Well, you don't have to tell me twice. When I saw this young girl at the bus stop, I just held my tongue and told myself, it ain't that bad, just a young girl who don't know what she's doing. The girl, tired of waiting, I guess, started trying to flag down a taxi. Now, there was one taxi man who was always driving folk to and from the hospital, and he used to ask me all the time, did I need a ride? Sometimes he'd say, ain't gonna charge you today, ma'am. But I never took him up on it. I was thinking, I wish he would have asked me today. That's how cold it was. Anyway, he drove up when the young girl put her hand in the air. He must have read my mind too, because he rolled down the window and he said, mighty chilly out, ma'am. I looked around every side of me to make sure he wasn't talking to somebody else. When I seen he was talking to me, I thought about how I only had enough money for the bus and didn't want to be nobody's charity case. I just wrapped my arms around myself and I said, no, sir, thanks for asking, though. Well, next thing you know, that man got out the taxi and came over to me. Now, he ain't a young man, mind you. I don't think a young man would give a damn. This was a well-seasoned man, the way Jimmy was before he got sick, wearing a raggedy but respectable sports coat and tipping his hat to me. The Hawk's out here today, ma'am. I don't want it to get you, so I'll take you where you want to go, no charge. My cold feet overtook my pride, and I sat up front next to him, because the young girl was in the back with her 2 squealing babies. We dropped her downtown at the fraternity and child support place on G Street. I thought about changing to the back seat when the girl got out, but that's all I did was think about it. He had some of them beaded seat covers up front. Them things feel like a miracle on your back. Leave the imprint on your clothes, though. He took one hand off the steering wheel and extended it to me. Name's Alonzo Murphy, ma'am, D.C. born and bred. And he gave an uphill laugh along with his name. I took his hand in my glove without looking at him because I didn't want him to take his eyes off the road. Helen Jones, I said, you any relation to the Murphys, belong to Israel Baptist up on the hill? I held my purse on my lap, gave me something to do with my hands. Could be, he said. Most of my people gone from here, though, and I don't do much church going, but could be. Had a white lady in here the other day, looked at my hacker's license and said her father-in-law named Murphy, too. I told her the same thing. Never know, could be some relation. He let out that rich laugh again. What the white woman say to that? Well, she didn't have to say much. She was just trying to make conversation at first, I guess. And when I said we might be related, it got a little uncomfortable for her. I told him where I was going when I realized he hadn't even asked. You in a hurry, he said, slow as beans cooking in a crock pot. I thought for a minute. I looked at his hands, brown as a paper bag, resting on the steering wheel while we were stopped at a red light. His fingers were thick and knotted, hard-working hands, but with a kindness to them. His hands reminded me of my daddy, who picked tobacco for most of his life. I noticed he wasn't wearing no wedding ring. I twisted mine around and around, rubbing my finger back and forth across the small diamond Jimmy had saved so long to get. I looked at Murphy's eyes, too, when he asked the question. Tired eyes with specks of red in them. Truthful eyes that don't try to hurt nobody. Murphy had one of them green air fresheners in the shape of a tree hanging off the cigarette lighter, and it smelled just like a pine cone. You could hear the heat humming along with the soft music station on the radio. It was a nice change from the rap songs the kids play on the bus that set your head to pounding. Something told me it wasn't no call for me to be scared. Alonzo Murphy wasn't no serial killer or rapist. For one thing, he was too old to be one. I glanced at him again from the corner of my eye. He was singing along with a radio tune, his hat tilted to the front of his head like Frank Sinatra. The way his beard seemed to smile along with his mouth set my mind at ease. I ain't in no hurry, I said, unbuttoning my overcoat. I surprised myself, but there wasn't nobody or nothing home waiting for me, that's for sure. So I was only telling the truth. Thank you.
Can we get it one more time for Tricia Elam Walker? Thank you. All right, now is the time. I'm going to be asking us for people who want to join and read to come up here and share a poem by Nikki Giovanni. We're doing about 3 minutes, so try to do an excerpt. So we can start a little line right up here, since I know we don't have a center aisle, and people can come read. And to warm us up, I'll read the afterword from this anthology. Oh, no, girl, come up. You know what? I saw you. Come on. You can come. Okay, she wants a second. All right. So I know some folks came a little bit later. I have one of the original copies of Nikki Giovanni's Night Comes Softly, which is actually said to be one of the earliest anthologies of Black women. We know there are more anthologies, but this is pretty big move. So the afterword goes, and at daybreak we expel our blackness, give up our magnificent spirit, submit to the wider images that control our lives. There are those who say you do not know the Black woman if only you see her during the light. Evening comes with an easy flow, us throwing off the white robes, revealing our chocolate cream black, revealing our loneliness, our desires, our needs. But you must look deeply into our eyes to know what we feel and how much we want you to know what we feel. And then comes dawn, the third, the end of the cycle, the hopeful warmth that we, our lovers and our children, will command this earth, will coordinate our earth movements, will flow in tune to tides and times. We'll rest, as Jackie Early says, in the cradle of our smile. A Black woman's smile starting deep from the strength of our hands, heaving our breasts to rest softly across our eyes. We are 94 voices speaking to each other, to our men and our children. We are asking that you listen, not to our words, not they are a foreign language, but to our rhythms. And you do not hear the rhythms with your ears. Ours is a deeper drum. You must come closer. You must come inside to hear our rhythms that you create, that you drum. And you have heard us. We have been naked before you. You may now commence the ritual. Nikki Giovanni. to our first reader. Come on.
Hi. Hello. Hi. Happy Sunday. I really like Let There Be Kisses. I'm going to take that and say that. Let there be kisses. So I wrote a poem tribute to Nikki Giovanni called A Poet Remembers a Poet. It has two parts. The first part is Bold Soul Sister, and the second part is The End and Beyonds. But I'm going to read an excerpt from Bold Soul Sister. Take it. She came through the darkness of her mommy's womb. For this baby, the earth made just enough room. Entry date June 7, 1943. In due time, she creates a literary legacy. Parents, Knoxville College graduates in Tennessee. Can these parents see who their daughter will be? Zodiac sign Gemini. An autobiography of the same name. As an adult, this Gemini will receive acclaim. As a child, there was a place where she felt free. Carnegie Library for Black people in Knoxville, Tennessee. She was a teenager with chores, had a grandmother she adored. In-home violence she abhorred. Her dad hit her mom and she did not take it lightly. She addressed domestic violence forthrightly. Summer 1958, she chose to live in her grandparents' love, a love warm and comforting like a pair of gloves. History was her major at her grandfather's college. In the Black community, she acquired knowledge. A chapter of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee she restarted. From a writer's activism, she never departed. She was the editor of a literary journal in college, participated in writers' workshops to increase her knowledge. During her college days, America was in its adolescent phase. Chattel slavery was curtailed in the 13th Amendment in 1865, yet America kept systemic racism and discrimination alive. In the 1950s and 60s, Black Americans offered improvements. Black arts, Black power, and a civil rights movement. Black arts and Black power this woman fully embraced. Both reflected how she occupied this earthly place. In 1967, this young woman graduated with honors from Fisk. Choosing to write for and about her people was not a risk. Yet her country of birth did not affirm a Black woman's worth. She did. After her much-loved grandmother's 1967 death, writing was the refuge where she caught her breath. 3 murdered leaders, Black men. When will the murders of her people end? Medgar, Malcolm, Martin. 1963, 1965, 1968. This woman's poetry could not wait. Black life she wrote about, spoke about, and understood. Her first poem, Nikki Rosa, recalled her childhood. In 1968, she self-published her first books of poetry. These 2 books remain relevant. Take a look. The first book, Black Feeling, Black Talk. She created a revolutionary path that her poems continue to walk. Her second book, Black Judgment, revealed her intent. Her writing left no doubt what she meant. She dispensed Black consciousness. Black people and Black-owned bookstores welcomed her voice. The civil rights movement was a necessity, not a choice. Her professional life became reading, writing, speaking, and poetry. Who was this woman? Who could she be? Her name was identical to her mother's. She had one sister, one brother. No brothers. Yolande Cornelia Jr. was her birth name. From her sister, the name Nikki came. She was, she is, and she will always be the one and only Nikki Giovanni. Miss Giovanni as a matter of respect, but no one was expected to genuflect, although her afro was her halo. Bold soul sister was an apt description. Her words arrived on time like a subscription. Behold the public TV program Soul. The truth about Black people began to unfold. Soul programming showcased Black culture and Black art. Nikki helped design and produce episodes for her part. Sometimes an interviewer, sometimes a guest host. Nikki was her natural self, no need to boast. In 1971, she flew to London with her toddler son. She flew to meet James Baldwin for a soul conversation. Young poet, seasoned writer, both a revelation. It's been 54 years since they appeared on Soul. Their still relevant conversation does not seem old. For Soul and Mr. Baldwin, Nikki Giovanni flew. From Soul and James Baldwin, Nikki Giovanni grew. She grew to be internationally known, easily recognized. No entourage, no fanfare, no disguise. Poet, activist, essayist. Nikki used her words, not her fist. Thank you. Thank you.
See, I was like, someone's gonna show up and give us everything we needed as well. In that, oh, thank you. That was beautiful. I'm gonna quickly read, and then I'm gonna bring up our next person. Okay, perfect. This is called a DC Minute. After found words printed or written on discarded items on the street. Oh, and this is a poem I wrote. We are braids grown back. We are 8 a.m. oyster orders. We are hand-rolled sweets in cognac foil. We are honeymoon in a glass, hips dipped at 75. We are all in stitches. Most days ahead, we zip through metro slits, freer than free, DC. All right, next.
Hi, thank you. I had been and continue to be thinking a lot about, and I think a lot of the writers who were kind enough to share with us today also thought and wrote a lot about pleasure and about feeling good and allowing yourself to do so. And sort of in Nikki's tradition and myself as a woman living in a fat, black, lesbian body, all the things, romance and intimacy on the brain. So I thought I'd read my favorite of Nikki's. It's called Seduction. One day, you're gonna walk in this house, and I'm gonna have on a long African gown, and you'll sit down and say, "The black," and I'm gonna take one arm out, and then you, not noticing me at all, will say, "And what about that brother?" And I'm gonna be slipping it over my head, and you'll rap on about, "And the revolution," while I rest one hand against my stomach. You'll go on as you always do, saying, "And you know, I just can't dig," while I'm moving your hand up and down, and I'll be taking your dashiki off, and you'll say, "You know what we really need," and I'll be licking your arm. And the way I see it, you know, we ought to, and unbuckling your pants. And what about the situation in, and I'm taking your shorts off. Then you'll notice your own state of undress. And knowing you, you'll just say, "Nikki, isn't this counter-revolutionary?" One thing Nikki was gonna write about was feeling good. I love that. And I wrote this one the day after she passed. It's called For When I'm Missing Nikki Giovanni. I hope that they remember me as having loved you. Maybe they can even do all that remembering at once, of students and teachers and mothers and daughters. And I hope I exist all tangled up like that with the spirit of the poet I loved. Like how they trace family trees and find the roots of great folks by checking what branches they're clinging on to. I hope my branches are measured in the meters you'd left us, wrapped up in your phrases, sitting on the rhythm of you. I'm getting precious about my bookshelf, not because I'm scared I won't be able to read your words when all the pages are coffee stained and tantrum tattered, but because I hope that those who love me will love my little thoughts, and my big ones too, enough to wonder what I'd read that made them so, and you'd made me so happy. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, one more time. Woo! Yes, I see the line forming, so please, still there's time to come up. Just for anyone who's thinking about time, we have about 10 minutes left, but I want to get as many people in as possible. So next up, come on.
Hi, hello. I am not from here, and my sister told me they were having this for Nikki Giovanni. And when I came to the United States and was going to college, she came to Brandeis University with Haki Madhubuti. He was Donnell Lee then, and with Leroy Jones, who is now Amiri Baraka. And she came and she rocked the show. I said, I like her. And one of the, we were at the Heights, we thought the revolution had arrived. And one of the poems she read just rocked the place. And I thought I'll share it with you. She says, nigga, can you kill? Can you? Can a nigga kill? Can a nigga kill a hunky? Can a nigga kill the man? Can you kill, nigga? Can you kill? Huh? Nigga, can you kill? Do you know how to draw blood? Can you poison? A nigga can die. We can kill for every letter in the alphabet, but can we do that for ourselves? We ain't got to prove we can die. We got to prove we can kill. Learn to kill niggas, learn to be black men.
All right. I'm just making sure this is balanced. We have someone else coming up.
Hi, I've actually never read anything publicly, but figured now's the time. This is an original poem. Shall we consider the specifics of your declared freedom as of late? You, my love, have forgotten how to last free. I wait with you, a bare-faced gentle, unmasked and understood. When you think no one cares about whatever your body makes or moves, I hear you. You are heard. I am here with you still. I am the one who wished you here from that breath before naming, from the back of that breath. I believe you. Remember me now in the small of your back. Hear me from the veins of hot pulp ordering the steps of your teeth. Move now. Recognize me. We have loved. Thank you.
I'm slowly making it up. Someone else want to come up and read and join us? You feel so moved. And also, just kind words are totally welcome. Maybe you thinking about how Nikki influenced your life, when you read her work. Please feel free to come up. Anyone else? Oh, yeah, come on. Perfect. Let's give it up.
Hello, everybody. My name is Kendall. This is my mother's book. I take some of her things. I took Rapture, her copy of Rapture by Anita Baker recently. I had been, reading this for this moment and kind of bookmarking the things that I understood and the things that I felt like I needed to keep reading over and over again. And so this one that I'm going to read is called Balances. It's a short one. In life, one is always balancing. Like we juggle our mothers against our fathers, or one teacher against another, only to balance our grade average. 3 grains salt to 1 ounce truth, our sweet black essence, or the funky honkies down the street. And lately I've begun wondering if you're trying to tell me something. We used to talk all night and do things alone together. And I've begun, as a reaction to a feeling, to balance the pleasure of loneliness against the pain of loving you. Thank you.
even if you're not in line, just come up. Well, we got 5 minutes left, so I'm going to read one more Nikki Giovanni poem to see our way. Feel free to interrupt me and come up. This is from the poem that she included in this collection. It's called All I Gotta Do. All I gotta do is sit and wait. Sit and wait. Did I see someone's hand? And it's gonna find me. All I gotta do is sit and wait. If I can learn how, what I need to do is sit and wait, because I'm a woman. Sit and wait. What I gotta do is sit and wait, because I'm a woman. It'll find me, you get yours, and I'll get mine. If I learn to sit and wait, you got yours, I want mine. And I'm gonna get it, because I'm gonna get it, because I need to get it, if I learn how. Thought about calling for it on the phone, asked for a delivery, but they didn't have it. Thought about going to the store to get it, walked to the corner, but they didn't have it. Called your name in my sleep, sitting and waiting, thought of you, would wake, called your name, laying in my bed, and you didn't have it. Offered to get it, but you didn't have it. So I'm sitting, all I know is sitting and waiting. Waiting and sitting, because I'm a woman, all I know is sitting and waiting. Because I gotta wait for it to find me. Nikki Giovanni. Anyone else want to share? Well, let's do a couple closing remarks, because I know we gotta keep a tight hour. Thank you so much again to our readers. Can we please? And then one more for all of you. Thank you so much for coming up and reading. The last thing I want to say is these spaces are not a given. I grew up in DC in the 90s, and I did think for a moment some of these places were, right? This kind of gathering for us, and it is not. And so it's important that if you find something, if you're moved by something, host your own tribute, host your own reading. Please reach out, because it won't happen without you. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Politics and Prose. Oh, by the way, I gotta do one plug, and in DC we got a plug. So in the front you'll see that we have books by our readers. Also, they have given me the okay that they're available to talk and get to know find their websites and stuff. If you do want to read their bios, they are available on the event page of this event. But yeah, please get their books. They are amazing people. And I also have some broadsides myself in the back that I am selling. And if any artist here wants to do their own broadsides, please do your own. Please ask me how I did it, and then you should be also sharing your work with us. So thank you all so much. Oh, we're also teaching a Nikki Giovanni class at Politics and Prose coming up in May. So please please come through. Also, if you have your own class, please teach it too. All right, bye. Woo!